Welcome guys to another episode of Tier Maker. So in this video we're going to be ranking Sonic 3D models, and yeah, without any further ado, let's get started. Starting with the Sonic the Fighters model, which I think was actually a really good start for them. I mean, compared to a lot of other models at the time, they did a really good job. They modeled the fingers. He looks like really round. They did a good job. So I think just for the time it is, I know in my videos I always start by putting stuff at B tier. Actually, yeah, no, it's getting B tier. I know I always start with B tier, but I don't know, I just do. Next up is the slightly less good Sonic R model, which actually, they're making this a skin for Classic Sonic and the Sonic X Shadow Generations if you sign up for the newsletter, which even though I'm not the biggest fan of the model, I'm still going to try and get it because it still is pretty cool. But it's definitely one of the less good models, so I'll give it, I'll give it D tier. Next up is the Sonic Adventure model. And I don't know, I really like his proportions. It's just, I like how he's like a little bit shorter, but still has like all the features of modern Sonic. He's just really good. I like him. I'll give him A tier. That's the Sonic Adventure DX model. I don't get people's problem with this model. I really don't get it. His proportions are good. He looks good. Everything about him is just good. I don't get what people don't like about him. Although he doesn't quite beat that. Well, I think he's pretty equal with this one because this one's just kind of cool as like the first like real 3D Sonic model, but this one's the first one that looks like really good. I think I'll put it a little bit above it. Next up is the Sonic Adventure 2 model, and I really like him. They did the soap shoes really good. His like the soap shoes, all of the textures on it and stuff are just textures. It's actually just like one like model. There's no actual like the buckles not like modeled or anything. It's just like one like lump, and they did so much of textures. Although I think I'm not the biggest fan of his ears. I think they look like a little bit too like big and round. But besides that, I think it's a really good model. So I'll give it A tier. Actually, no, I'll put it above him a little bit. Next up, the Sonic Heroes model. This one looks like I don't know, this one looked a lot like the Secret Rings models in my opinion. Well, like that one from Secret Rings. Just, like, he's, like, really bright, which really, like, fits in with the aesthetic of the game. Although, it's just, I don't know what it is exactly, but there's just something that makes me a little off about this model, so I'll give it B tier. Next up, the Sonic 06 model. I don't know why it's so pale in this picture, but it's like I like that they were doing something different, and it's their first like really high quality Sonic model. They really put a lot of work into it, except I feel like his body proportions are just slightly off, and it's not like too bad. It's still like it's a good model. It's just that they're like slightly off. So, but I'll still give it A tier. Next up, the model from Secret Rings. Now, this one, there's two of them, so I'll kind of just put them, well, I'll put the Black Knight one a little bit ahead because of the glove, but I'll talk about that in a second. I think they did good. For the Wii, they did a really good job. It's nothing like groundbreaking, and they did make a lot better of a model for colors, so that proved that they didn't need to go as low poly as they did, but it's not that bad. It's still like a really good model. So I think I'll give it A tier. And next up, the Black Knight model. Now you can't really see the sword in this picture, but for the sword they do a lot of texturing. They don't actually do that much for modeling on the sword, but oh man, somehow this model with this hand has more polygons than this one. It's just, I don't know, I feel like this hand would take more work, but it's so like polygonal that I guess it makes more sense that this one is. And also I think they cut a few corners in other places. Next up, the Sonic Unleashed model, which is going in S tier. They just did like such a good job on it. I don't know, I just really like how expressive it is, and it fits into the style of Unleashed so much. I think that it's made by Marza, and it just looks like it's from a Pixar movie. And you can really tell it's the Unleashed model because around the cuffs, for some reason, they use just a ton of polygons, just so many. It's like a blur. They use so many. Next up, the Sonic Colors model, and for having I think 10,000 less polygons, they did such a good job of keeping up the detail. Like, you can definitely tell this one's higher quality, and the image is pretty small, but this one has 10,000 or something less polygons. So it is just like a miracle that they were able to pull that off, and I think that's pretty impressive. So I'll give it A tier. See, next up we have the Sonic Generations model, which I think is really good. I think I like it slightly less than the one in Unleashed. And yes, they are different, just like very, very slight differences. I think the one in Unleashed was just slightly more expressive, and it's not that there's anything wrong with this one. It's just I like the look of this one a little bit more. Next up, we have Classic Sonic from Generations, and one thing that is really, really weird, this guy has like a couple thousand more polygons than this guy. And I assume smaller character would mean less polygons, but I guess not, because this guy is a lot. And I will say, I think they could have done a slightly better job at adapting the classic design, but they didn't do like a horrible job. But I just feel like I don't get why they made him so light. I think he should be like a tiny bit darker, and just like a few more proportions changed. But he's still like pretty good. I'll put him in A tier. And then this one doesn't have like the most recent models. I'll still talk about them. But next up we have the Sonic Lost World model, which I do like less. I don't really like the proportion change of making his limbs shorter, which they go further in the next games, but it's still like alright. So I think I'll give it A tier. But next up, I think Frontiers and Forces use the same model. I'm not sure, but I'm not a fan of the shorter spikes at all. I think it just makes them look like way too short. I'm not a fan of the shorter spikes, and for some reason they fixed it a bit in Frontiers, but in Forces his shoes were like almost pink. The Forces shoes were just really off. I mean it also goes along with my thing for I don't know, I'm gonna rant about Forces for a second, but the game just looks really bad. I mean there are parts that look good, but the thing is, what they're trying to do, they're using an altered version of the Marza model from Sonic Unleashed, and then throwing him in these realistic places that don't like fit with the style of any of the characters' models, and it just looks so off. I don't like how Forces looks. Like, if it's just Forces itself, it looks good, but then when you put the characters in with just like off art style, it just doesn't work in my opinion. And also I want to credit the YouTuber A Plus Start for this is where I got all the pictures from, because it would have been a nightmare to track all these down. And if you haven't seen this, look at his low poly series, and also Son of a Glitch. A Plus Start is just such an amazing YouTuber. I've watched him since I was little, so definitely go check him out. But yeah, that'll be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and goodbye. Bon appetit.